Okay, so this is a review of buying shares. If you weren't at the Head Start program, this wouldn't be a review. Actually, if you did general maths last year, it would have been a review as well. But if you were, say, from a different subject and you weren't at Head Start, this would be new to you. So it is very important to know how much you're going to pay in total to buy shares in a company. You need to actually do maths because you are not just paying for each share that you're buying. You have to pay brokerage and you have to pay GST on top of that. So the cost of buying the shares is going to be slightly more than what the shares are actually worth because you need to pay a guy to do it and you need to pay the government GST. So the components that make up a share buying calculation are these three. The consideration is the total value of all the shares you're purchasing. So how do I work out the consideration? It's the number of shares times by what you're buying them for. Brokerage is that fee that you pay someone else because you cannot purchase shares yourself. These days you use an app, and these days the brokerage is very cheap. So in your book, brokerage is going to be like 2%, 1%. You're going to be given a false impression of that's what brokerage is. No. On my app, it costs $9.50, regardless of how much I spend. If you do a percentage, it's like 0.02%. It's tiny. So if anything, the maths that we're doing, it's a bit unrealistic. It's making brokerage seem a bit high. But in real life, it's quite cheap. So brokerage can either be a percentage of consideration or it's a flat fee. So there's two options for brokerage, depending on the question. If the brokerage is a percentage, you times the brokerage rate as a decimal by the consideration. Or if the brokerage is a flat fee, well, the brokerage is just that dollar amount, the flat fee. GST in Australia, we have something called the goods and services tax that applies to certain goods and services. As shares themselves don't exist, so you're not going to charge that goods and services tax on the shares because they just are an imaginary thing. They're just like numbers written on a computer somewhere. You're going to charge the brokerage, which is the service provider. Someone gave you a service of buying the shares for you or selling the shares for you, so the government takes 10% of that. So GST is 0.1, which is 10% as a decimal, times by the brokerage. So overall, the total cost of buying shares is the sum of consideration, brokerage, and GST. I'll give you some writing time for that.
So are we doing exercise 4C?
Is that the buying shares one?
Yeah.
Yep. So a couple of minutes for that. Maybe a little shorter because you have had it before. There'll be a video online now. If you're subbed to the channel, you might have noticed the pace and work ethic video. Here's my lovely year 10s. Thought it would be good to work very slow. And whinged to me that there was too much homework. Then I showed them live that you could do the homework in 6 minutes if you actually just try. All right, let's show you how to do this maths. Calculate the cost of buying 1,500 Telstra shares at $5.40 each with a brokerage rate of 2%. Why doesn't it tell you GST? It's just going to be 10%. And yeah, I'm pretty sure like people would get upset in Australia if there's something. We actually do need to change it to higher than 10%, but it's just ingrained in society now. So how do I show working for a buying calculation? You go consideration. How many shares am I buying? 1,500 times by $5.40. I've got my calculator here. Unfortunately, it doesn't show up there. But you can see on my screen, there's a little calculator that popped out of the side. I don't know why it's not popping up there. 1,500 times by $5.40 is $8,100. Brokerage, what kind of brokerage is it in this situation? Is it the flat fee or is it a percentage brokerage? Percentage brokerage. What is 2% written as a decimal? Good. Why is it not 0.2? Because that would be 20% and that broker would be making a lot of money off of people. So 0.02 times by the consideration, which is $8,100. I need the calculator for that. Times by 0.02. $162 of brokerage. GST in Australia is 10%, 0.1 times by the brokerage of $162. If you're timesing something by 0.1, that is exactly the same as dividing something by 10. And 162 divided by 10, if you divide something by 10, you just move the decimal point once to the left. So that's an easy step of the process, $16.20. So the total cost of buying is going to be the total of all of that. So 0, 2, 6, 7, 8, 6, 7, 2, I get $8,278.20. You could do all that in the calculator, it's fine. When you're adding, you can just add vertical, okay? Give you some time to get down to there if you want. A couple of minutes and then I'll show you what a flat fee calculation looks like. What's so funny? Okay. As long as it makes sense to you. If he asks you for a cheat sheet, write it like that so he can get confused. So once again, you guys all get a one-sided A4 handwritten note sheet this year, except for the very last test of the year, where there's no note, no calculator. Everyone freaks out about that at the start of the year. When you start doing the topic, you're like, oh, it's actually fine, okay? And your exam, you get a double-sided A4 handwritten note sheet. The exam's on your last 3 topics. So once you've done the test and DI of this subject, this topic, shares, you can forget about it completely. The next topic we do, once you do the test, forget about it completely. After that, you need to try to remember everything to the end of the year. Let's do this last calculation. Consideration, I'm not going to write the whole word. How many shares am I buying? 500 times by $4.80. I have a calculator that appears on my screen, which you can't see. 500 times by 4.8. That's $2,400. That's the value of the shares I'm trying to buy. But why is that not the end of the story? Because I have to pay a guy brokerage or an app. What kind of brokerage is it this time? Are we have a percentage? Do I need to do any maths for that? No, it's just a number, 30. So it's once again going to be 30 over here. Then GST, 0.1 times by 30 is the same as dividing by 10. So brokerage is going to be $3. So total cost of buying is going to be $2,433. Okay. Give you some time to get that, but your homework and now to end of EX4C. Also, during the rest of the lesson, I just want to check out people's books and see that you've been trying to do the exercises and checking them as you go. Okay?